So I have been feeling a little bit under the weather recently, and unfortunately that means I've spent several afternoons wrapped up in blankets just watching Netflix. Fortunately though, I decided to give a show a try that my audience has been begging me to get into for literally years now, and that is going to be Cowboy Bebop. And it's always a little bit dangerous when you're an adult getting into something that a large part of your audience has an extremely nostalgic attachment to, because it may not hold up, and pointing out criticisms to something that has flaws doesn't exactly always go so well on the internet. Fortunately, Cowboy Bebop is a outstanding success, and I think it's for one very clear reason. Now, there's a lot of different angles to this show I could spend quite a bit of time talking about and doing whole video essays on. I mean, the influence alone from Cowboy Bebop, based on when it came out and when a lot of things came after, is far larger than I think I ever realized, and that's kind of a continual theme for me getting into animes late. But let's go ahead and talk about one particular angle that I feel makes Cowboy Bebop truly special. And it's something that I don't think any other show or movie or book I've encountered in my life has hit in exactly the same way this show does, and it's a truly unique tone. Now, tone as an element of media is always a little bit more tricky to put your thumb on exactly why it works or doesn't, and that's because it's not just one singular element, it's the amalgamation of many others. A successful tone is achieved through mastery of other parts. You need to have proper scoring, animation, beats, pacing, voice acting, all of it comes together to create that oh so immersive atmosphere that's going to envelop your reader, your watcher, your listener in that tone. And so for me to say that Cowboy Bebop has such a successful tone is already letting you know that there are many other elements that are reaching that truly great status. I mean, good God, the music. This is the best music I've ever seen for an animated thing ever, period, full stop. The just soundtrack that you can find on Spotify or YouTube Music is just sensational. I've been writing to it, I've been working out to it, I've just been listening to it while doing chores around the house. It's awesome! I feel like if you just listened to the soundtrack for the movie before even watching the show, you will have an impression of what the entire tone of the series is going to be. And it's this brilliant, wacky, bombastic, horns up front, drums going wild, bass slapping so hard, jazz style that occasionally will just somber up and lull you into further, far deeper emotions before punching you back in the face with another just absolute slammer of a bop, which is exactly the type of narrative Cowboy Bebop is also trying to tell. Like many great shows that came before it, what feels like just a lot of episodes that happen to be chained together slowly unveils not only a larger, more interesting, magnificent world, but connected points between character relationship, plot elements, and so much more. That means at the end of that season, you're able to deliver some serious haymakers of built-up emotion through the story. It's a formula that was very popular in the time and still continues in TV to this day, where, yeah, you just have some beginning episodes that some people may even say are the weakest of the show because they don't have that solid base that they're currently building to rely on. On rewatch, though, they often can be fan favorites because it's where you get to know so many of your characters so well. And that's actually how I want to get into how Cowboy Bebop tells a story. So let's get into the setting a little bit here. Cowboy Bebop is a space western in every single sense of the word, with a super sexy 60s, 70s inspired jazzy overlay that I am a tremendous fan of. And there's also quite a heavy influence I'm picking up from spy thrillers. You have this noir flavor mixed in with this space western that has just such extraordinary results. The women are sexy, the men smolder, the action is violent yet goofy. It has that noir flavor just poured on into this story and really amplifying the character development that is so crucial for the ending of this story to work. But getting back more into the setting, we're following essentially just bounty hunters. We have two characters at the beginning, with our main one kind of being Spike. No, Spike. There we go, this Spike. Although if we're going to be bringing up Joss Whedon things, I think it's safe to say he took an extraordinary amount from Cowboy Bebop when developing Firefly, but let's move on. And so the dish you end up getting with these influences coming together in a way I really haven't seen done before is a world that it feels so appropriate to have this grimy undertone with this really beautiful overlay. That instead of having the grime on top and beauty underneath, it feels like it's been reversed, where there is these just gorgeous visuals constantly. The animated style has these muted colors that are still allowed to be so vibrant, and whether the characters are in a casino, a space station, or adrift in the stars, you're going to feel like you are just in something that is just perfectly realized and absolutely original for its time. And so that's the framework of what allowed the tone to be so successful. But obviously with every tone, you are so dependent on the characters that lead the way, and that is why your crew in a space-veering setting is so important. They are going to be the ones who allow all the different instruments of your tone to play off each other. And let's continue the metaphor and talk about Spike. Spike is the sorrowful horn of this chorus. He is clearly suffering from depression due to a past I will not spoil here, and his presence on the ship can provide comedy, it can provide levity, but continually we are reminded as audience members that this is a man who has had to go through a lot, and the end result is someone who is just adrift. He is, in every conceivable way, adrift in the stars. At first, it might strike you as kind of hollow and lazy to have this character driving the ship, metaphorically, not literally, that's Jet's job, whose only motivation is hunting down these bounties, but it's then realized why he is this way, and that's a really key part of the show. There's also Jet Black, who is his pilot and a retired cop, and provides a lot more of the grit to this world. Jet is a lot more about the connections to the outside, and his character not only provides a lot of growth through the previous connections he has had, but he also provides this feeling of history where it feels like this world has been around for centuries. And that seems like, duh, obviously it's this thing set in Earth's future, but it's not a feeling that's always realized. Sometimes it feels like the world starts with the story. Cowboy Bebop does not. I mean, there's even little jokes throughout the season that actually continue to help add that, like these three jaded gamblers who are always having the best and worst of luck, and their just presence and being there adds this quirk that I'm so in love with. And then we get our first additional crew member with Faye Valentine. And at this point, it became very clear to me that, yeah, each character represents a side of this overall world, where Faye Valentine is the result of this cyberpunkish world having a lot of greed and self-indulgence, selfishness, yet you definitely really care about her, and she's not a horrible person. She's just the end result of the environment she's been raised in, so you very much so understand who she is. And seeing these characters come together, you start also processing the fact that you're not really following good guys, you're following survivors. This becomes a show about traumatized people coming together and finding some thing with each other. And as the painting of this picture becomes more and more unveiled to you as the episodes move on, you get things like a corgi added to the crew and a child, both of them bringing more of that goofy tone that's actually throughout this series as well into the ship that is the home base. And that goofy tone, oh, is it effectively utilized. So absurdism, goofiness within a world like this needs to be treated like a very powerful spice. If you overutilize it, it's going to overwhelm everything else and undercut so much of the emotional weight this series needs to land later on. But if you use it sparingly enough and you're careful, it adds fantastic humor and some levity in a show that otherwise could be a bit too emotional draining to watch. And it's going to come down to personal taste, but this was exactly the right amount of just humor and absurdism for Cowboy Bebop to keep its heart, yet have a good time along the way. I mean, a prime example of this is in Faye Valentine's first episode. The way she's introduced, she just walks into a store, there are hitmen that pull up outside, she whips around with a machine gun, just starts spraying bullets, there's fire and someone diving under a counter, it's crazy, it's chaos. And then after an inexplicable couple of moments, she's just surrounded by guns and taken prisoner for someone else who needs her for a job. But that's just how she's picked up for a job, because why not? I finally thought of the perfect way to put it. It's basically like watching a space western D&D campaign where the DM knows the exact right amount of rule of cool overriding the rules versus when it shouldn't, and you still need to set stakes, because there are definitely still stakes, especially between character relationships. The way they evolve with each other is subtle yet dramatic, and then at the end of the campaign, there's still this wonderful story being told that was extremely well set up by the DM, and they're smart enough to go back to a lot of these little things that felt almost inconsequential and tie them up in this magnificent bow. So I managed to tie it into D&D. I'm happy because of that, yay. So getting to the point, it's just a fabulously balanced meal of a show, and it's one that each bite is more delicious than the last, because the more all these pieces come together and are fleshed out, and there's so little fat on the meat, every line, every visual is helping build the world and set up characters and relationships that by the end of it, when it's done, you're so sad, but it's appropriate because it's just one season and it's one movie. And if they dragged it out, it could overstay its welcome. It's a complete picture. And that's why when I tried to get into the live action, I don't even understand how that concept got off the ground. The presentation, the animation style is so key to why this works. Of course, it's not going to be as good in live action. You are taking an inherent step down because Cowboy Bebop is about specific color choices and exaggerations through animation that allow humor to land. Seeing people do these things, seeing people wear clothes that reflect these costumes, they're not going to look as good. Every bit is going to take a step down. I'm starting to join the anime fans in saying that, yeah, certain things just can't be better in live action. They shouldn't be adapted. It's not a superior medium. You're just changing something that was designed in conception to work for one and trying to force it into another. That's not an improvement. The stylized anime is a part of why the story works. And at the end of the day, it's that simple. Your live action version will age. This will never age. I love the sex appeal, the bombastic violence, the characters, the relationships, the world, the pacing, all of it coming together to present a tone that made me feel a way I have not felt since I was a young kid. I want to take off in a ship in this world. It just managed to grab my heart and want to take off and pretend to be a space cowboy. I'm gonna carry this weight of the show enjoyment until I die. And I'm going to end this review by settling a debate I'm uniquely qualified to settle. As a bi man, I can tell you who is more attractive, Faye Valentine or Spike. It's a draw. It's actually a draw. That's why the debate's so hard. They are equally hot. I'm also sick, so I'm sorry this wasn't the most thorough narrative review ever. I'm having a hard time even thinking through brain fog right now, so please excuse any incoherentness I have going on. I am still actively working on Neon Ghosts. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. I got merch, I got books, and have a good one, y'all. Bye! And I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreon, Logan Weaver.